Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called the vice president a man who lectures working people about poverty from the leather seats of Air Force Two. She did this on live television right in front of 4.1 million viewers. The gallery laughed. Her aide nodded. The clip hit 15,000 shares in 40 seconds. She figured tonight was her night. She was wrong. Because 9 minutes after that jab, JD Vance asked her one question, just one question, not about a scandal, not about corruption, not about anything she had prepared for. He asked her how much the average rent in Parkchester was. Parkchester, the neighborhood she grew up in, the neighborhood she mentions in every speech, the neighborhood she brings up every time she needs to remind America where she came from. She didn't know. And from that moment, from 7 seconds of silence in front of 14 live cameras, everything Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had built over 7 years began to fall apart. Not because Vance had classified documents, not because he had evidence of some big scandal. He had a laptop, Census Bureau data, FBI crime stats, and Google Maps, all public, all verifiable by anyone watching. And all of it belonged to the 14th District of New York, her district. The town hall was 12 minutes old, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez owned the room. She delivered her opening standing up. Unusual for a panel format, but deliberate. 3 minutes on Medicaid cuts. 90 seconds on wage stagnation, a line about her mother cleaning offices in Manhattan that landed exactly the way her communications team designed it to land. Personal, specific, hard to argue with. She mentioned the Bronx twice. She said the phrase working families 4 times. Her voice filled the studio, the way voices fill studios when the speaker has practiced filling them. Then she turned to Vance, tilted her head. That signature tilt, the one that launched 1,000 memes and 100 cable news supercuts. She said, the vice president wants to talk about the working class. That's interesting because his boss just cut Medicaid for 13.7 million people. But I'm sure hell explained that from the leather seats of Air Force Two. The gallery erupted, not applause, laughter. The sharp, delighted laughter of a room that chose its winner before the first round was even over. In the press section, an MSNBC producer was already drafting the Chiron AOC confronts VP in fiery town hall exchange. Her communications director, Kofi Asante, watched from the green room on a tablet and allowed himself a small nod. Everything was on script, everything was on schedule. The moderator turned to Vance. The camera found him already looking at his laptop, not at Ocasio-Cortez, not at the gallery, not at the moderator, just at the screen. His fingers rested on the keyboard the way a pianist's fingers rest on keys before the first note. 5 seconds passed. In a room with 14 live microphones, 5 seconds is a paragraph. Then he spoke. His voice was Ohio flat, unhurried, stripped of performance. My mother was addicted to hard drugs when I was 12 years old, he said. I lived with my grandmother. My grandmother kept a loaded pistol under her pillow because our neighborhood didn't have enough police to call. I know the working class, not because I came from it, but because I was never allowed to leave until the Marines sent me to Iraq. The laughter stopped. It didn't fade. It stopped, the way a faucet stops when you turn it hard to the right. He paused. Something shifted behind his eyes. The drawbridge lifting between the man who grew up hungry in Middletown, Ohio, and the man who graduated from Yale Law School and learned that numbers are more dangerous than stories. When he spoke again, the warmth was gone. What replaced it was precision. But I'm not here tonight to trade sad stories. I'm here to count. He opened a new tab on the laptop. In the green room, Kofi Asante's small nod died. He had prepared Ocasio-Cortez for a debate. 62 pages of opposition research on Vance's voting record, his donors, his contradictions, 4 rehearsed attack lines, 3 pivot strategies, all of it designed for a man who would argue. Vance was not arguing. Kofi picked up his phone and texted the legislative director 2 words, pull district. I want to talk about the 14th Congressional District of New York. Vance did not look at Ocasio-Cortez when he said it. He looked at the studio monitor, the one facing the audience, the one connected to 4.1 million living rooms. Crime in the Congresswoman's district has increased 70% since 2019, more than double the citywide average. Ocasio-Cortez's left hand moved to the stack of briefing papers her staff had prepared, 62 pages color-coded, tabbed. Her fingers found the edge of the stack but did not open it. There was nothing in 62 pages that could answer a number she should have known without looking. Poverty rate, 19.8%, 1.5 times the national average. Unemployment, 8.3%, double the national rate. Home ownership, 27.6%, 1/3 of the national average. More than 7 out of 10 of the Congresswoman's constituents rent. He turned from the monitor to the room. These are not my numbers. This is the Census Bureau. FBI Uniform Crime Report, public record. You can check it tonight. I encourage you to check it tonight. He looked at Ocasio-Cortez for the first time since the town hall began. The look was not hostile. It was the look of an accountant who opened a ledger and found it empty. The Congresswoman has represented this district for 7 years. She introduced the Green New Deal. She moved to impeach Supreme Court justices. She attended the Munich Security Conference. She toured the country on a bus called Fight Oligarchy. In that time, crime in her district rose 70%. I have a simple question. Did you know that number? Ocasio-Cortez leaned into her microphone. Vice President, these are systemic issues driven by decades of underfunding, structural inequality, and frankly, by your administration's cuts to federal programs that communities like mine depend on. You said systemic. I asked about District 14. You have 720,000 constituents. Crime is up 70%. You have been in Congress 7 years. Who is responsible? She opened her mouth, then closed it. The gesture, identical to what 4.1 million people would later replay in the clip, lasted less than 2 seconds. But 2 seconds under 14 cameras is a confession. Vance read from the laptop. What is the average rent in Parkchester this month? 7 seconds of silence. He did not wait for an answer. He already knew she did not have one. $2,200, up 22% in 3 years. More than half of your constituents pay over 50% of their income in rent. This is the neighborhood you grew up in, Congresswoman. In the 5th row of the gallery, a woman in hospital scrubs shifted forward in her seat. Her Lincoln Hospital ID badge was still clipped to her pocket. Her name was Carmen Reyes. She made $42,000 a year. She paid $1,800 a month in rent. She had voted for Ocasio-Cortez 3 times. She was about to hear her name. I want to tell you about a woman named Carmen Reyes. Vance was looking at the camera now, not the studio monitor, the camera itself. The glass eye connected to 4.1 million rooms where people were eating dinner, checking their phones, and about to stop doing both. Carmen is a nursing assistant at Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx. She has a daughter, Diana, who is 14. They live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Parkchester, the same neighborhood the Congresswoman grew up in. Carmen makes $42,000 a year. She pays $1,800 a month in rent. That is 51% of her income. She takes the bus at 5 in the morning. The room was quiet. Not town hall quiet. Hospital quiet. Carmen voted for the Congresswoman in 2018. You know why? Because Amazon had just announced 25,000 jobs in Long Island City, right in the Congresswoman's district. Carmen was going to apply for customer service. $65,000 a year, more than half, again, what she makes now. She told Diana they were getting ready for a new future. He typed something on the laptop. Numbers appeared on the studio monitor. 25,000 jobs, average salary, $150,000. That is $3.75 billion in annual wages flowing into the 14th district. Then the Congresswoman stopped it. Ocasio-Cortez leaned forward. That deal was a $3 billion giveaway to the richest man on the planet. There was no check, 4 words. He did not look up from the screen. There was no check written, no money changed hands. The $3 billion was a projection of tax revenue from jobs that did not exist yet. The Congresswoman campaigned against money that had not been created. When Amazon left, the money was never created. It just disappeared. Along with 25,000 phone calls that were never made to families like Carmen's, he opened a new tab. Google Maps, satellite view, a patch of empty concrete in Long Island City, gray and flat bordered by half-built towers and construction cranes that stopped moving 2 years ago. This is the lot where Amazon's headquarters was going to be. This is what 25,000 futures look like when they don't happen. The image stayed on the monitor. Vance let it sit. The way a lawyer lets an exhibit sit in front of a jury long enough for every person in the box to understand that this is not a prop, but a real place where nothing is happening right now. Amazon came back later to Manhattan, 1,500 jobs. 6% of the original number, no tax incentives, not in the Congresswoman's district. She posted a photograph of herself on a couch and told the internet she deserved an apology. He paused. 1,500 out of 25,000. She called it a victory. 57% of voters in her own district said Amazon leaving was bad for New York. Carmen stopped telling Diana about the new future. Ocasio-Cortez mouth opened, the beginning of a sentence that never arrived. Not because she was silenced. She had been silenced before and fought back. This was different. This was the particular silence of a person who just heard their own argument restated more clearly than they have ever stated it themselves, and realized it sounds worse in plain English than it did in talking points. Vance's voice changed. The cold precision softened into something conversational, almost casual, the tone of a man reading a restaurant receipt he finds personally amusing. It was more frightening than the precision because it meant he was comfortable. I want to read a tweet. He turned the laptop so the studio monitor displayed a screenshot, white background, blue text, verified checkmark. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the 18th of February, 2025. I commute to D.C. on either rail or commercial flight. Not everyone wants to screw over the public for personal profit. He let the tweet sit on the screen. 3 seconds. 4. The 22nd of April, 2025. Earth Day. 63 days after this tweet. New image on the monitor. A photograph. Not grainy, not ambiguous. Ocasio-Cortez descending the steps of a Bombardier Challenger private jet at Meadows Field Airport in Bakersfield, California. Sanders behind her. Campaign staff carrying bags. $15,000 an hour. Tour called Fighting Oligarchy. The campaign spent $221,000 on private jet charters in the first quarter of 2025 alone. 63 days from I take the train to a private jet that costs more per hour than Carmen Reyes makes in a month. He looked at Ocasio-Cortez. What changed in 63 days, Congresswoman? The schedule or the conscience? The tour required it. She reset, straightened, and found the talking point her team had prepared for exactly this question. These flights were necessary for scheduling and security. The campaign offsets all emissions through verified carbon credits. Carbon credits. Vance repeated the phrase the way you repeat a word in a foreign language when you were not sure you heard it correctly. In 2023, the Congresswoman said, and I am quoting, "How many private jets do these CEOs need? It is insatiable." That was 2 years before she boarded one. If carbon credits solved the problem, why didn't she let the CEOs buy them? The gallery was silent for the first time in the evening. Ocasio-Cortez did not have a next sentence, not a clapback, not a reframe. Not a three-word phrase that would trend for 48 hours. She had the absence of a sentence, which under 14 cameras looks exactly like the presence of an answer she cannot give. Vance turned to the camera. $77,000 for 5 hours of flying. Carmen Reyes makes $42,000 a year. That is nearly 2 years of Carmen taking the bus at 5 in the morning so the Congresswoman could fly 5 hours to fight oligarchy. On the notepad in front of Ocasio-Cortez, a single word had been written and then crossed out. The cameras were not close enough to read it. But the gesture writing something and then canceling it was the gesture of a person who drafted a rebuttal and realized mid-sentence that the rebuttal is worse than the silence. Now the hotels. Vance said it the way Adena says, now the other side. Routine, procedural, almost gentle. The gentleness was the worst part. He read from FEC filings. No drama, just numbers paired with one recurring phrase. Vidara Hotel and Spa, Las Vegas, $3,500 per night. Pause. Carmen makes $812 a week. Pause. Leo Kent Hotel Tucson, a boutique high-rise, $3,100 per night. Pause. $812 a week. Pause. Hotel Palacio Provincial San Juan, Puerto Rico, multiple stays. $4,000 per night. Pause. $812 a week. He did not comment between the pairs. He did not need to. The silence between the numbers was doing the work. Each pause a bridge the audience crossed on their own, arriving at the same destination without being led. Total luxury hotel expenditures in 2025. $53,500. Campaign funds, 66 weeks of Carmen's salary, more than a year of her life. He scrolled to another document. There were also sushi restaurants with $150 14-course tasting menus, seafood dinners on the Las Vegas Strip, a venue rental at an arena where the Congresswoman attended a Bad Bunny concert, charged to the campaign as event expenses. He set the laptop on the table, placed both hands flat beside it, and then he read 2 internal campaign emails that would within 72 hours become the most quoted sentences of the year. Email 1, from a scheduler to a travel coordinator, quote, nothing below 4-star, she's particular about thread count. Email 2, same chain, quote, don't let anyone photograph the hotel lobby. The chandelier sends the wrong message. He looked at Ocasio-Cortez for the second time in the entire town hall. He looked directly at her, and the rarity of the gesture gave it the weight of a verdict. The chandelier sends the wrong message. Do you know what message you have been sending to Carmen? To the 720,000 people in your district. Pause. Longer than any pause before. Long enough for every person in the room to feel the shape of what was coming. Fight oligarchy. Do you know what an oligarch looks like, Congresswoman? Private jet, 4-star hotel, staff worrying about thread count, staff making sure no one photographs the lobby. He did not finish the sentence. He did not say, that's you. He left the question suspended in the air of the studio like smoke from a candle that has just been blown out, visible, shapeless, impossible to put back. In the green room, Kofi Asante set his tablet face down on the table. He did not pick it up again for the rest of the evening. On the screen, a text from the campaign's legal counsel glowed unanswered. Who authorized those emails to staff? We need the originals now. Ocasio-Cortez pushed back. She pushed back because that is what she does. It is the thing that made her, the thing that carried her from a bar in the Bronx to the floor of the United States Congress. And she was not going to let it abandon her. The vice president sits in the White House that serves billionaires. The same billionaires who funded his career, who bought his Senate seat, who handpicked him for the ticket, and he has the audacity to lecture me about the working class? Her voice rose, found its rhythm, found the particular frequency that had filled arenas from Denver to Los Angeles. My mother cleaned offices so I could go to college. My father passed away when I was 19. I worked as a bartender to pay off student loans. Don't you dare tell me I don't know where I come from. The gallery stirred, not the full-throated eruption of the opening, a murmur, a rustle, the sound of an audience that wants to cheer but is no longer sure it should. Vance listened. He did not interrupt. He did not shift in his chair. He waited until she finished, the way a man waits for rain to stop before he walks outside, patiently knowing the sky will eventually run out. Then he spoke quietly, almost gently, the voice of a man who is about to say the truest thing he has said all night and is sorry about it, but not sorry enough to stop. The Congresswoman just told us about her mother cleaning offices. I believe her. That story is real. But here is what she did not say. Her mother cleaned offices so that she could attend Boston University, so that she could run for Congress, so that she could fly on a private jet on Earth Day and stay in hotels that cost $3,500 a night and have staff worry about her thread count. Carmen Reyes also has a mother. Carmen's mother also cleaned. But Carmen does not have a private jet. Carmen does not have a $15 million campaign fund. Carmen has a bus at 5 in the morning and rent that takes half her paycheck. The Congresswoman tells her mother's story every time she needs to remind people where she came from. But Carmen doesn't need to remind anyone. Carmen is still there. Carmen never got to leave. The room did not react. Not because the words were not strong enough, but because the room was doing something more dangerous than reacting. It was agreeing, silently, privately, in the particular way that an audience agrees, when it has heard something it already knew, but had never heard anyone say out loud. Vance closed the laptop. The click of the latch was the only sound in the studio. The difference between you in 2018 and you in 2026 is not that you are stronger or smarter. It is distance. Every year you fly higher, Carmen takes an earlier bus. And that distance, that exact distance, is the thing you say you are fighting against. In the fifth row of the gallery, Carmen Reyes, the real Carmen, the one who had not known she would be named tonight. The one still wearing her hospital scrubs because she had come straight from a 12-hour shift, looked at Ocasio-Cortez the way you look at a photograph of someone you used to know. The moderator asked Ocasio-Cortez if she would like to respond. She did not leave. She did not storm out. She did not reach for her attorney or her aide or her phone. She stayed. And what she did was worse than leaving, because leaving can be spun as protest, but staying and having nothing to say cannot be spun as anything. She spoke for the first time in 7 years of congressional appearances, television interviews, Instagram lives, rally speeches, and committee hearings. She spoke without an audience in mind. The words came out the way words come out of a person who is talking to themselves in a car, fragmented, searching, stripped of the cadence that had made her famous. She said context. She said nuance. She said bigger picture. She said the work I have done in committee is not always visible. She said the words that every politician reaches for when the real words are not available. The filler, the padding, the rhetorical equivalent of a screensaver. No one in the gallery moved, not because they were captivated, but because they recognized what they were watching. They were watching a person realize in real time that the version of themselves they have been performing for 7 years is not the version that is sitting in this chair right now. And the distance between those two versions, the performed self and the actual self, was exactly the distance Vance had just measured. Vance said nothing more. He closed the laptop, took a sip of water, set the glass down, straightened the laptop's edge until it was parallel with the table. The small, ordinary movements of a man who had said everything he came to say and not one syllable more. In the green room, Kofi Asante's phone vibrated with a call from the campaign manager. He let it ring. On the tablet, still face down on the table, the screen glowed with a notification he would not read for another 40 minutes. A text from a New York Times reporter, 2 words, call me. The moderator cleared his throat. I want to thank both of our guests. Nobody heard the rest. 3 clips, 3 drops. The first was the Parkchester clip, 7 seconds of silence after a question about rent. 22 million views in 72 hours. Hashtag She Doesn't Know trended for 18 hours. The clip was not edited, not cut, not remixed. It did not need to be. 7 seconds of a woman not knowing the rent in the neighborhood she grew up in was its own edit. The second was the February to April clip, the tweet and the private jet side by side, 19 million views, shared by conservatives and climate activists in equal measure for different reasons and with the same conclusion. The New York Post ran it under the headline, 63 days. The third was the thread count clip, the emails, the $812 a week comparison, and the 4 seconds of silence after Do you know what an oligarch looks like? 14 million views. But this clip did something the others did not. It generated a meme. Within 48 hours, the internet had produced Tax the Rich, Check the Thread Count t-shirts, coffee mugs, and an Instagram filter that superimposed a chandelier over any selfie. The merch was a joke. The damage was not. Week 1, Ocasio-Cortez office released a 6-sentence statement calling the town hall gotcha politics designed to distract from the real threats facing working families. It did not attach counter documents. It did not provide her own district numbers. It did not address the thread count emails. It did not explain the private jet, a denial without receipts. And in the age of receipts, a denial without receipts is a confirmation. Fox News ran the clips on rotation. That was expected. What was not expected was MSNBC, her home network, the studio where she had given more interviews than any other member of Congress under 40, ran a panel segment titled, Does AOC Have a Credibility Problem? 3 of the 4 panelists said yes. The 4th said not yet, which was worse than yes, because it meant the question was still open and the answer was still moving in one direction. Week 2. The fundraising bleed began, not a collapse, something quieter. 4 bundlers from California requested private calls with the campaign manager, not because they believe Vance, but because donors read polls and polls read damage. The Wall Street Journal published an analysis of her campaign spending, $53,500 on hotels, $77,000 on jets, inside AOC's Fight Oligarchy budget. The article contained nothing Vance had not already read aloud, but a newspaper saying it is different from an opponent saying it, a newspaper saying it means it is now a fact, not an accusation. The Daily News editorial board wrote a single paragraph that every political strategist in New York read twice. Vance didn't call her a hypocrite. He didn't need to. He measured the distance and let the numbers speak. The question for the Congresswoman is not whether the numbers are wrong, they are not, but whether she has been gone so long that she no longer knows they are right. Week 3. Elena Vargas announced her run for city council member, District 14. 41 years old. Former public school teacher. Lives in Jackson Heights. Daughter attends public school in the district. Vargas did not attack Ocasio-Cortez directly. She launched her campaign with a single sentence. I know what rent costs in Parkchester. $2,200. I know because I still live here. 19 words, 2 million shares. Not because the sentence was clever, but because it was the answer to the question that Ocasio-Cortez could not answer. And everyone recognized it as such. National polls shifted. Ocasio-Cortez favorable, unfavorable rating moved 11 points unfavorable among independents, 6 points among voters 18 to 34. Her core base. Axios published a piece titled AOC's 2028 Math Just Got Harder, analyzing how both her potential paths, primary challenge to Senator Schumer or a presidential run, had narrowed. The article used a phrase that would follow her. Thread count is now an attack ad that writes itself. Week 4. Ocasio-Cortez did something she had not done in 2 years. She held a town hall in her own district, not because she wanted to, because she had to. Her team called it reconnecting with constituents. Everyone else called it damage control. She stood in front of 400 people at a community center in Parkchester. No bulletproof glass. No 36,000 person crowd. No Bernie Sanders beside her. Just a microphone and 400 faces from the Bronx and Queens, most of whom she had not spoken to directly since before the pandemic. A woman stood up in the third row, 60 years old, gray hair, hospital cafeteria apron with a Lincoln Hospital logo. She took the microphone and spoke in Spanish first, then English. I voted for you 3 times. I want to ask you one question. Do you know my name? Ocasio-Cortez did not know her name. My name is Liz. I have worked in the cafeteria at Lincoln Hospital for 11 years. I want to ask you a second question. When was the last time you came to this district not to film a video? Ocasio-Cortez answered. But the answer did not matter. What mattered was how she answered. For the first time, her voice did not sound like a woman addressing Congress or a camera or a rally of 36,000. It sounded like an apology. And everyone in the room heard the difference. The Lose clip did not go viral. It got 800,000 views, a fraction of Vance's 47 million. But it did more damage than all 47 million, because Vance's clip showed that AOC did not know her district. The Lose clip showed that her district did not know her. Month 2, Ocasio-Cortez Instagram, 9.6 million followers, did not lose followers. Controversy creates attention, and attention creates followers. And the algorithm does not distinguish between admiration and contempt. But the comments section changed. Before the town hall, comments were Queen, Slay, We Stand. After the town hall, the most liked comment under every post, regardless of topic, was 3 words. Come home, AOC. 3 words that were not an attack, they were a request. And a request from your own voters is worse than an attack from your opponents, because an attack you can ignore. But a request from the people who put you in office follows you the way your shadow follows you. Present in every light, absent only in darkness. Cited Chakrabarty, her former chief of staff, the man who co-founded Justice Democrats and helped build her from a bartender into a congresswoman, now running for Congress himself in San Francisco. The man she pointedly refused to endorse posted 6 words on X. The movement was never about proximity. He did not tag her. He did not need to. Month 3, Elena Vargas, first poll. Vargas 31%, Ocasio-Cortez 54%. Undecided 15%. The numbers did not leak, they erupted. Not because 54% was low for a safe seat in a D+38 district, though it was, but because 31% for an unknown challenger with no name recognition and no national profile was the number that had a name. Political operatives called it the Crowley number, named after Joe Crowley, the 10-term incumbent Ocasio-Cortez had defeated in 2018 with exactly this kind of margin. The irony was structural, total, and merciless. The number named after the man she unseated was now the number measuring the possibility that she could be unseated the same way. History does not repeat, but sometimes it photocopies. Ocasio-Cortez's team did not release the poll. But when it leaked, the headline was not AOC leads challenger 54-31. The headline was AOC's challenger hits 31 without name recognition, the Crowley number. She canceled 3 scheduled podcast appearances. Her press office cited scheduling conflicts. The phrase appeared in every cancellation notice, word for word, like a stamp pressed into wet concrete, identical each time, and each time less convincing. She did not post on Instagram for 72 hours. For a woman who had built her career on never being silent, 72 hours of silence was not a strategy. It was a white flag sewn from the fabric of her own brand. On the 47th night after the town hall, at 2 a.m, in the break room of Lincoln Hospital, Carmen Reyes sat in a plastic chair under fluorescent light with a cup of machine coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. Diana had texted her, "Mom, did you see the video? A YouTube link." 47 million views. Carmen had seen it. She watched it 4 times. Each time she paused at the same moment. Carmen never got to leave, and each time she sat with the pause a little longer. The first time she paused for 3 seconds. The 4th time she paused for a full minute, looking at the break room wall, at the cork board with the overtime sign-up sheet and the faded printout about hand-washing technique, and the photograph of last year's holiday party that no one had thought to take down. She opened Instagram. Ocasio-Cortez profile. 9.6 million followers. Most recent post, a photograph at the Munich Security Conference, 4 months old. She scrolled past the Met Gala, past the Los Angeles rally with 36,000 people, past the photo with Sanders, past the Capitol steps behind bulletproof glass. She scrolled and scrolled, looking for something without knowing what it was. A photograph from the Bronx, maybe, or Parkchester, or Jackson Heights, or any of the neighborhoods where 720,000 people lived and worked and paid rent that took half their paychecks. She found one, 11 months old. A selfie at a bakery, a campaign event, 30 seconds of stopping. The most liked comment under that photograph, posted 3 weeks ago, was 2 words that had not been there when the photo was first uploaded. Come back. Carmen did not unfollow. She placed the phone face down on the table. She stood up, poured out the cold coffee, and walked down the hallway to room 412 to change a bandage. Outside the break room window, the Long Island city skyline stretched against the night. Cranes, towers, lights. And on the corner of Center Boulevard, the empty lot where 25,000 futures had almost lived, where teenagers now sat on concrete barriers in the evenings and looked at their phones and did not know what had almost been built there. The lot had nothing on it. It would have nothing on it. And Carmen knew now, everyone knew, that the distance between Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the 14th District of New York was not a matter of geography. It was the distance between a private jet and a bus at 5 in the morning. And that distance every year only grew.